Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we have ourselves a few tracks from an act named Souryadeep Bhattacharyya. This is featuring Joseph Leone and Louis Romanos, titled, this is from the Catalpa The Trio album. And as we switch over to here, apologies for any mispronunciations there, I did legitimately try my best. We've got, starting with Gypsy at Heart, The Identity. Some of these are live performances, which should be good. We're going to listen through these tracks from start to finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's go, let's do it. So conservatively, guitar, almost like a Cornish kind of thing going on with the sides and main bass. Interesting panning. I mean, they're beautiful harmonies. I think a lot of it is the rhythm, the way they intersperse or intersect with each other. Was this captured on a camera microphone? Don't get me wrong, it's just the panning is interesting, how it kind of rolled into the center like that. Is it 7, 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe 4, 4, and 3, 4? The panning is phenomenal. I like how the music surrounds you in a stereo field. And there's some interesting scale choices with the lead though. I mean, fantastic tremolo picking there. Rather just alternate picking, I suppose. Because you also the sort of tambourine, or the bells is that main sort of symbol in it. Movement fingers. Even if you don't explicitly follow the time signature, you can still follow along to it though. The beats loop into themselves. Fantastic use of the crash at the end, the cymbal, the gong, the crash. We're going to talk about this track more in a minute. So that was Gypsy at Heart, Identity. Now, what I think this track is about, I think it's an instrumental that is more sort of meant to represent that sort of folkish gypsy sort of like tale. You can kind of imagine people playing around those sort of more traditional instruments there by like a campfire. Like a group of people. It's sort of like a festival, like sort of like a dance thing, like a late night kind of dance between people. It's a very sort of surface level understanding of it, but it's also open to interpretation in part because the fact that, again, it is an instrumental. I think it's a song which has a lot going for it. I just want to sort of first of all mention that the instrument, I think the main lead instrument in here, aside from the guitar, is the sarod, if I'm not mistaken, the sarod. That is what Souryadeep is playing within this track. And so I think that was... I liked the way that was handled within this. I think the actual tone of the instrument, the use of the slides there, the way we sort of like used a lot of different interesting sort of scales, movements there, lots of different rhythms, and we integrated really neatly with what was going on with the guitars as well as with the percussion. You know, just there's a sense of intricacy and attention to detail with it. I liked also the fact that we allowed other instruments to come forward, such as, if I'm not mistaken, Joseph Leone on the guitar, as well as Louis Romanos on the percussion, the hand drums. I'm not quite sure specifically what kind of drum they were using. There was a mixture of like hand drums, like a cajonish kind of thing going on there, a djembe or something like that. And then you've also got like the bells and the gong and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different types. And I think that more sort of like orchestral percussion kind of makes it a little bit more sort of grounded and a little bit less contemporary sounding, which I appreciate. But yeah, I think the way we phrase things with the interesting use of scale shapes, with the harmonic and melodic minors as well as other things there, working with parallel majors and the key signatures, there's just a lot to appreciate in regards to the sarod itself and the way it's played. I think at like 6 minutes, it's a long track, but you go through this journey as it's through composed. And so I think structurally, there's very little filler within it. You effectively get to a point where you're very comfortable with the arrangement of things. You don't have all the instruments all the time. So for example, for like the first sort of like 15 seconds or so, if not more, you simply have the percussion, the hand drums there, the different sort of like pseudo sort of hand tapped kind of snare and sort of, I suppose, bassy kind of patterns there. And things kind of build up from there. And you go through this natural bell curve in this journey with varying intensities throughout there to sort of with phenomenal attention to detail in regards to the actual rhythm playing. But it was just structurally, there was lots of sort of different twists and turns, and it all sort of melded together seamlessly without any harsh edges. It was a very smooth listen with lots of really interesting sort of musical bits of air candy in there as well. But it's also the fundamental understanding of rhythm itself. We had polyrhythms and interesting sort of time signatures and switch ups and stuff like that. We were very competent across the main 4 quarters, 8s, triplets, and 16ths, plus also some 30 seconds. And we knew kind of how to sort of call and respond to each other whilst also maintaining unison when it was appropriate. We had parts which were more sort of restrained and other parts were kind of sort of the waves went over each other. And so it's a really interesting piece, which was almost sort of like mesmerizing, intoxicating in its approach there. And I love it. I don't think we could have done this any other way. It sort of made me want to dance, and it's catchy as hell in a weird way. So I can understand why people appreciate what they're doing here, and I just think it was a fantastic first impression to their work. Glad that we've got another 2 tracks after this to check through. Fantastic start to the album. And then we've got Beatle Bug, Imagination, track number 2. Starting with some harmonics. The shakers. I love the glow of it. Yeah, we mess around with all these different meters. We're kind of flirting with that upper range, aren't we? And it panned again. Interesting quarter accents there. I mean, it's really pretty. What I will say, I'm not sure if there's going to be a break at this point. There is a sense of it being very full for a lot of it. And I think that there are some people who will want more sort of peaks and troughs with certain music that they listen to, but that'll be sort of more of a stylistic preference more than anything. Because it does come down, don't get me wrong. This is arguably less intense dynamically than previous parts we've had. that symbol there. Just a whoosh. And a return to the motif. Awesome. Fantastic. So that was track number 2, Beatle Bug, Imagination. What do I think this track is about? I kind of listened to it and I can kind of imagine, because of all the bright kind of elements that shimmer, it's like a bug flying through the sky, and it's kind of, you can imagine a bug. And then I suppose just from the title Imagination, maybe that is simply, it could be referring to some of, I suppose, the like the actual Beatles, the more progressive stuff that the Beatles did, like a little bit later on to their careers, I'm not sure. But imagination, yeah, you could imagine stuff listening to this. I feel like it's sort of celebrating creativity. This is another well-played and well-performed track there. In terms of thing I appreciate about it, again, it's the way that things were panned. So like I've commented on this a few times. I kind of dig the way it went from that way to that way. And that may seem like a little thing when I've pointed it out, but it's almost like the music is washing over you. I'm not sure if that's a deliberate decision or if that's just something done during the recording process, like accidentally, but either way, it's fantastic. It's just a very unusual decision. I don't typically hear the entire master bus go from that way, which is why I initially thought that was. So I've realized that this could potentially be seen as incredibly offensive, and I don't mean it like that. It's literally just, usually when people are recording with like a camera or something like that, the panning, like if they move their camera, the sound will go from that, all of it. So that's why I said that. The actual recording quality is phenomenal within this. So just in case people were watching this thinking, why does he think this is recorded with a camera? Well, that's not what I mean at all. I mean, it's just more that the panning decisions, this is the first time in like 1,000 reviews where I've heard the audio for the entire song kind of go like that with the focus that smoothly. It could be an automation thing, but I want to sort of comment on the fact that the actual production, this is incredibly tight. The actual recording quality, the way that the sarod, the guitars, the percussion, the gongs, the shimmers, the shakers, etc., all of them are put forward are beautiful. They sound pristine. There's no issues whatsoever. There's like definitely a room sound to it, which makes a lot of sense if it's a live performance. So you're going to get that, but I still think it's incredibly competent and capable, and I had a fantastic time hearing it out. Yeah, no complaints as well in regards to the actual post-production limiting stuff either, but I think, yeah, it's also that despite the complexity, I've probably mentioned this in the previous track, but we do come to more simple parts where like we sort of like minimize the movement or delay, or sort of like the pulling apart of several parts kind of going in and out of each other, and we sort of like find a sense of unison. I think that push and pull throughout a track is part of what helps it to remain compelling. There is the risk when we make music like this, where I mentioned at that 4.5 minute mark, I feel like I had a good understanding of the song at that point. I was more sort of asking, okay, if this track is going to go for another 1.5 minutes, what are we going to do to sort of further elongate it in a way that makes musical sense and is a benefit to the listener as well as to the crowd? And to be fair, when you're a musician, you don't need to make stuff that benefits the listener. It's just that if we're sharing it, it can be kind of helpful to have both, right? And so when I listen to this, I go, okay, this is clearly someone who is very sort of like comfortable with having this much going on. But it's like when we got to the end and things sort of smoothed out a little bit and got a bit more sort of simple, I appreciate that the change there, the relative minimalism in comparison to everything else we had. I think that there's a good sort of self-awareness and balance there, despite how much we can do and what we're capable of, that we know that less is more sometimes. Finally, I think it's just the playfulness of some of the sarod lead parts earlier on. Like they were kind of like sliding up and going all around the kind of thing, almost adding some chromaticisms to it. It's almost like you can kind of imagine someone playing or dancing around, having a bit of fun with it. It's the actual advanced sort of technical ability there that allows you to go beyond simply being able to play whatever you want, being able to play whatever you want in a way which is actually productive. And so I love it. I thought it was a very sort of mature performance, including that. I've got no real complaints about it. I think that a lot of the decisions here are really technically sound, and I'm glad to hear more. So then finally, we have the live performance here, and we've got like cloud drums and stuff like that. Let's go. Sweet Love meditation music from Catalpa. Was that a rain drum, I suppose? And is that fretless? If that's fretless, that's phenomenal that they can play like that. So that's how they're doing it. They're using brushes on the cymbal. Nice. This is a beautiful stage they have as well. In the most respectful way, it kind of seems like a big old jam section with musicians who are highly competent, you know? They're showing great chemistry with each other. I mean, like, that slide work is ridiculous. It's cool. Really interesting bass drum that they've got there, eh? And they use a hi-hat pedal for the ch-ch sound. Great, switch up to the kicks. I mean, I wonder how much of this is like written and how much of it is improvised. I mean, just be a lot to remember, wouldn't it? I'm being genuine about that. And we're resolved to the root. Nice, good effort. You know what I appreciate, because this is Sweet Love. What I think this track is about before we get into what I appreciate. I think this is maybe trying to sort of help you to understand the feeling of being in love with someone. There's a lot of warmth from the chord choices, the melodies, the triad, the phrasings there where they sort of sit in line, how they transfer between. There's no real kind of darkness within this track. So I suppose we're just going straight into things I appreciate. The first are the chord progressions. I like the use of majors and minors, some of the harmonic and melodic minors. I'm hesitant to say there's a specific scale, but I do think it's either based on majors, melodic, harmonic, majors or minors, or there might be one that's sort of a certain type one. But either way, the scale is distinctive, but we also have some interesting suspended chords in there as well for a bit of glow and charm to it, which I think add a bit of a sort of a neutral kind of shimmer and sheen to the piece. It's like a glow that doesn't necessarily have that much of a strong opinion, and I kind of dig that. So I think harmonically, this track is really pretty, and that's the thing that's sort of been consistent, should I say, over the last few tracks that we've heard today. So I'm really happy with that. I think in addition to the way it's played in terms of the actual sort of like scale shapes and harmonies and stuff like that, it's the actual chemistry of the people and how they sort of feed off of each other. Like in this video, I know it's more of a video thing, but it's also, I suppose, equally a performance thing. You can actually see each other. You can see them paying attention to each other, like trying to figure out, okay, this is where we're going next. This is where we are. What are we doing here? They're like sort of like keeping eye contact and they're sort of feeding off of each other. And it's very tight because of that. It's just a fantastic, mature performance with really competent musicians, as I mentioned before, who are just very comfortable with what they're doing and where they're at. And they just want to make a really great experience for everyone involved. So I just think it's that also just that actual professionalism, but also that ability to perform, which is really important. And finally, I just think it's the track that, you know, it just reinforces a sense of consistency across these, but it's just really pleasant to listen to. Like, it's busy, but like, I think with this one in particular, it's almost like it's kind of cool that we're trying to see how much we can fit in what's getting away with it. So that may seem a little bit trivial, but I mean, like, there are a lot of genres of music where you couldn't get away with like constant tremolo picking, like for like more than like a minute or something like that. It's just with a lot of modern music nowadays, you need a lot more sort of like variety with actually the instrumental layers and tones and textures and stuff like that. So to be able to keep us going with an extended solo section, with having those peaks and troughs as previous ones, but just with a lot of a similar sort of technique there with either the slides or that, it's testament to their ability to sort of either, you know, like to know how much to use of certain things in a way where it does not become too much. And I just think it's also testament to like the percussion on the flip side, having lots of different things to hit, like with the vertical kind of hand-held drum that sort of on, or like having the cloud drum where they tapped, or the rain drum, or doing occasional cymbal shimmers. It's nice to have one instrument that is consistent with what it's doing for a sense of characterization, but another where it sort of is more sort of modular and it's able to sort of like pick stuff up and do certain things and have that flexibility there. And so welcome to the conclusion of my review of these tracks from an act named, this is the Catalpa The Trio album, with Souryadeep Bhattacharyya, as well as Joseph Leone and Louis Romanos, if I'm not mispronouncing those. Hopefully it's okay. I think this album is exploring different topics, such as what we've seen so far. We have seen Gypsy at Heart, Beatle Bug, and Sweet Love. And so I think these are instrumental. There's no lyrics. It's just trying to sort of mirror what they consider to be those topics within music. I've already spoken about the tracks individually within their very sort of like little sort of like mini conclusions. So if you want to check out individual comments, you can check them out there. But my overall thoughts on this is they're just incredible musicians. Like the main sort of guitar, sarod, and percussion elements there, phenomenal. They're very competent, very tight with their rhythms, their harmonies, their melodies, their chord progressions, and sort of key signatures and stuff like that. They understand how to create longer form tracks, which never become stale. even if they are like 6 minutes, and that's quite a long time, especially for an instrumental. But just we managed to sort of change things up enough, despite a consistency with some of the ways that we're playing the Sorob, with like the slides and the tremolo picking and stuff like that. A lot of it being dominant. We know to take stuff away, bring in the guitar, maybe have the guitar starting with some harmonics. Have the first 15 seconds or so simply be percussion, like with Gypsy at Heart. We understand how to sort of adjust for expectations so that the album as a whole is more, there's more variety there and it remains compelling, even if you're very familiar, even after that first song with a lot of the main sort of components. I think as a live performance, it shows a tremendous proficiency on their various instruments, a flexibility in terms of how they can operate with the percussion, using lots of different sort of like tones and textures with their different rhythms and beats. Their use of different time signatures, polyrhythms and polymeter-ish kind of stuff is just insane. It's just so wild that they're able to sort of follow along all of that. I'm very impressed with their understanding of rhythm theory and stuff like that. It's fantastic, and it's just, on top of that, it's just the overall tonality of it having such a nice glow to it and being so warm and full of life and vigor. There were typical major leanings. There might be some minors. There's harmonics and melodic minors. There were some other scale shapes, but traditionally, there's no real harsh edges to this. Sometimes things are a little bit busy. Sometimes we have extended lead solos here. So if you're a fan of those, you're going to have them here. And I just think if we do write really competent music for musicians who are really clearly passionate about what they do. It's a fantastic three-piece. They can play as well as they record as they do live, because they're doing both here. I just think they managed to incorporate a lot of the more sort of traditional sort of elements there in a way where I feel it fits well with a contemporary audience. And I dig that. I think even if that's not their aim, it's just for someone who hasn't listened to a lot of music like this, it kind of makes me want to listen to it a bit more, because I really enjoyed my time with it. And studio production in general is commercial grade, as I mentioned. So effectively, the recording, I know I mentioned just the panning of certain things been kind of like a little unusual, like the whole entire track went from like left to right. But I think that was more of a stylistic decision, maybe in post. I'm not sure why that was made, but that's just me being transparent about that. I also could be tripping, but It's not a complaint so much as just a curiosity, I suppose. But everything else outside of that, even that, it's very good. I'm glad I had the opportunity to hear it. Thank you for watching my review of this music from Souryadeep Bhattacharyya featuring Joseph Leone Louis Romanos. This album titled Catalpa The Trio, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I will catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.